It's a wonderful Friday morning, and you are most welcome again to our Shifting Blame series. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where in the world you're joining us from. My name is Estella Hilda Anaman, and I'm the coordinator for American Corner Abuba, and I'll be your moderator for this session. So, American Spaces provides access to current and reliable information about the United States through book collections, internet access, events, and activities for everyone. So our topic for discussion today is My Space, My Safety, Combating Online Child Sexual Exploitation in Ghana. In the times we are in today, which are shaped by digital interactions, ensuring the safety of our children has never been more crucial. And we are going to delve into these pressing issues, understand its complexities, and explore strategies to safeguard the youth of Ghana from online sexual exploitation. So we are honored to have this session to be facilitated by Madam Annabelle Palia, and she is the programs manager for the ACT Foundation. So Annabelle Palia is a women and child rights advocate. She is a programs manager at the ACT Foundation Ghana, where she manages all cases of gender-based violence reported to the organization and the ACT Shelter for Abused Women and Children. So she has worked on several projects in the area of women and child's rights, sexual and reproductive health rights in the Upper and Greater Accra region. So she is also a member of several advocacy groups, including Domestic Violence Coalition, CSA, working to stop child sexual abuse in schools in Ghana. So she holds a BA degree in French and Geography and an MA in International Affairs from the University of Ghana. So during the session, please type all your comments, all questions in the comment box below, and they'll be well addressed. Thank you for staying with us. And now I'll hand it over to Annabelle Palia.
Thank you very much, Estella. Good morning to you all. Good morning to our viewers online. It's a wonderful Friday, and I'm happy to be here once again to share with you about the issue of child online sexual exploitation in Ghana. So let me use this opportunity to also inform the public that tomorrow marks the beginning of the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence, which is a global event. And so I think it's very important that today we are looking at this issue of child online exploitation, because it is also a form of child abuse or a form of gender-based violence. And it's important to raise awareness about it. Right, so let me quickly move on to what we're going to look at today. So just like Estella mentioned, we're going to look at the issue of child online sexual exploitation. So I'm saying my space, my world, my space, combating child online sexual exploitation in Ghana. So what at all is this issue about online sexual exploitation in Ghana? So we would look at a comparison of our world today and then our world 20 years ago. So how are children living now, especially as we are in a tech world? And then we'll look at some facts and data indicating why it's important for us to be concerned about this issue of child online sexual exploitation. We'll look at global digital trends, and then we'll look at what children are doing online. Are we aware of what our children are doing online? Do we even pay attention to what they do online? Or we just give them the devices and then that's it? And then we'll look at the risks that are associated with children being online. What are some of the risks that have come up over the years? And then we'll look at laws addressing child sexual exploitation in Ghana. So here, the main focus will be on the Cybersecurity Act, which is the main law in Ghana that regulates this issue. And then we would have a discussion on some safety guidelines, some important things we need to do as parents, as guardians, as children, as teachers, in order to stay safe online. So quickly, let me move on to the presentation. So I'm just drawing your mind back to how children used to play 20 to, let's say 10 to 20 years ago. So I remember when I was growing up, we used to play in school, all sorts of traditional games. We used to play with pebbles, stones. I mean, most of our interactions were outdoors. So we used to interact outdoors. But is that the case now? What we are seeing now is that now most children are spending their time virtually. They are spending their time online. And why is this so? It is because of the age we are in now. We live in a tech world now. Now there are very sophisticated devices and almost everybody has access to that. So you don't only find adults being online, but now children are also spending a lot of time online. And it's important that we pay attention to what they are doing and ensure that they are protected and safe anytime they surf online. So these are very interesting pictures I took. So you look over there, the little girl with the tablet on her lap. So can you imagine? And how is she able to know that you have to position the tablet this way and even tap on the screen? To tell you that now children of today are not like we were previously. Because even at this age, she knows that this is how you have to manipulate the device. And even the child holding the phone. Look at how she's able to position the phone. She's probably learned it from her parents or her siblings or something. So it means the children are watching what we are doing, and it's important that we ensure they do the right thing when they are online. Now let's look at some global statistics. So interestingly, statistics is indicating that 1/3 of all internet users today are children and young people. And we have over 8 million children active on social media. If you are not concerned about this, and I don't know what you're about. It's also saying that there was a research that was done by the International Center for Missing and Exploited Children in 2021. And it came out that over about 29.3 million reports of potential online child sexual exploitation cases were recorded. And this was an increase from 35% in 2022. And this increase is actually associated with the COVID pandemic. So as you all remember, the world was hit with the issue of COVID-19, and almost every activity had to be moved online. So most activities were moved online. And our children were not left out because children couldn't go to school, but they still had to learn. So studies had to move online. So parents had to find ways and means of getting devices, phones. Even children in the rural areas were not left out. There were instances where some parents had to find ways of letting their children continue with their education, even during the COVID period. So they should tell you that a lot of children were exposed to virtual devices, starting from the COVID period till date. And the other issue too is that now it's easy for you to access a digital device, unlike previously where it was very expensive. But now with a little money, you can at least get a smartphone that you can use. Some children even are able to buy some of these devices by themselves. So I think it's very important that we pay attention to these numbers and do all that we can to ensure that children stay safe. Now let's look at what we have here in Ghana. So if you look at the 2021 population census that was organized in 2021, you notice that there's been an increase in the number of children in Ghana who have access to digital devices, particularly mobile devices. So comparing it to the 2010 population census, which stated that just about 10% of young people in Ghana between the ages of 12 and 19 had access to mobile phones. But now you have about 73.1% of young people in Ghana having access to these ICT devices, particularly the mobile phones. And so it is important that we pay attention to these numbers because it means that a lot more young people are being exposed to the internet. We are not saying that children going online is bad, but we are saying that there are risks associated with being online. So it's important that we are able to draw our children's attention to some of these issues. Now that we've seen what the statistics are saying, let's look at some of the risks that are associated with being online. Before I move on to that, I just want to quickly mention that a study was done just this year. And this study actually indicated that when it comes to social media users in the world, Ghana comes 8th. And out of this position, a lot of young people have access to social media. So it's saying that Ghana comes 8th when it comes to social media use. And this should be a grave concern for us as Ghanaians because it means there's a lot more children, or we could even have more numbers as compared to what the statistics are saying. Now, do we even know what our children are doing online? Like I mentioned in the introduction, you know that particularly during the COVID period, if you were following conversations on social media, a lot of parents were saying, oh, the mobile phone or the tablets or the laptops were keeping their children calm because they were not in school. So a lot of people had to get them these devices for them to stay calm because, you know, children can be very stubborn and bothersome. So it was like a distraction for the children. But were we really paying attention to what the children were doing, or are we still paying attention to what children are doing? So like I mentioned, so this was a study that I did in 2021, and findings actually came out to indicate that children in Ghana mostly engage on social media. So they are mostly, so when children go online, what they are doing mostly is to be on social media. So they are sharing personal information, they are sharing pictures, they are sharing videos, they are sharing messages online. So that in order of priority, that is what most children in Ghana are doing. The second thing is they are sending and receiving messages. And the research actually indicated that sometimes these things are sent to strangers. So people they don't even know. So people they met online. You just meet somebody online and then they start sharing their personal information, videos, and images to them. Children are also uploading pictures. So they are taking pictures of themselves, including naked pictures of themselves, and uploading it online to strangers. They are watching all sorts of videos from all sorts of sites. And then the list of it is academic and research work. So in order of priority, this is what our children are doing online. And I think it's very important that our minds are drawn to this issue. Now that we know what our children are doing online, let's see what some of the risks that are associated with they being online. So the first thing we'll look at is the issue of cyber grooming. So I don't know if you all know what cyber grooming is, but this is usually where somebody befriends a young person online, and usually the intention is to build trust. So it's like a gradual process. So it could be an adult or it could be a child. And what they usually do is they use fake identity. So I can pick a picture of a child and use it as my Facebook name or whatever. And then I start engaging you. So you start having conversations about different, but by the time you realize you are attached to this person. And usually the relationship is such that the intention is usually for sexual abuse. And like I'm saying, perpetrators often use fake identities of children. So children, we don't have to be deceived by the people you see online. I remember there was a campaign we had in one of the secondary schools in Ghana. And there was a young girl who approached me and said that she found this male friend on Facebook. This is somebody she doesn't know. And they've been chatting for the past 2 months to the extent that the male actually sent her money to buy credit so that they can always chat. And now he's asking her to send nude pictures of herself to him on social media. So she was asking me if it was okay for her to send a picture because this person has been giving her money to buy data. I mean, can you imagine? So I had to sit her down and explain the dangers of putting your naked pictures out there, because the thing is that the internet doesn't forget. So even if the information is pulled down, it can definitely be retrieved. Or you have people who download some of these images. So even if it's pulled down, definitely somebody will still have it. So it's important you don't even let these things go online. So we are saying that for cyber grooming, it's a gradual process where you're trying to build a trust relationship with the child. So you engage the child for some time. So we need to be wary of the people we accept their friend requests. When you go on social media, people are accepting all sorts of friend requests. Sometimes you can even go to the person's site and at least read about what the person is doing online before you even accept the person's friend request. Now, the other issue is cyberbullying. This is also very common in our senior high schools. And as parents, guardians, adults, we need to pay attention to our children in the senior high schools and also in the junior high schools. Even sometimes in the primary schools, we shouldn't say that these children are young, so they don't know what is happening, because there are children in primary school who have access to mobile phones. And the thing is that even if you don't buy the device for your child, they have friends who have these phones. They go to school, they have friends in the neighborhoods and things like even children in rural areas. So it is important that we sensitize them early enough so that even if they go to school and they are using their friends' devices, I mean, they are able to be cautious. Now, we are saying that for cyberbullying, usually the intention is to harass or threaten or to embarrass you. And it's usually targeted at persons who have an issue. So maybe you have a friend on campus, let's say in school, and then you upload the person's picture. It could be a funny picture, or maybe you come across a naked picture of somebody and you put it online, and then you begin to harass the person, tease the person. And it is something that is very common in your senior high schools. So today we are here to tell you that if it's something that you are doing, you need to stop it. Maybe the person might have done something to you and you want to embarrass the person, but you need to be informed that the internet doesn't forget. And it also has effects, very negative effects on the person. Cyberbullying can also take place between an adult and a child, or even between two children. So cyberbullying is also one of the risks that are associated with being online. Then the issue of sextortion or sexual extortion. What is this issue? And now it's becoming very common. I remember even when I was on campus at the university, was very common. So this is where a predator tricks a child into giving him or her nude or naked pictures or videos of herself. So like I mentioned with the cyber group, so they start grooming you, and then the friendship is built on trust. And then the person tells you, oh, I like you. Can you send me a naked picture of yourself? Or can you video your naked self and send it to me? Now you thinking, oh, this person is my friend, or maybe I'm dating this person. Send this image or video to the person. And by the time you realize, the person sends you a message and says, okay, I have your video. If you don't give me money, or if you don't send me more pictures, I'm going to put this online. And sometimes they even ask you for money. If you don't give me this amount of money, I'm going to put your images online. Or they begin to ask you for all sorts of favors. This is known as sexual extortion, criminal here in Ghana. There's also the issue of sexting or sex texting, where you send sexually explicit messages or words by digital devices. And this is also very common. Sometimes it might even come from somebody you don't know. And the dangerous thing is that now when you receive, sometimes you see a video of a child or maybe a naked picture of somebody or video, and then you begin to share it to people. It is also against the law. You can be charged actually for it. Right? So anytime you get a message like you just delete it from your phone. So we are saying that sextortion is real. Children are being extorted. They are being asked to do all sorts of favors because people have threatened them with their images online. And that's why I mentioned right from the beginning that you don't even have to put your pictures over there. If anybody should ask you, send me your naked pictures so I put it online, don't give it to the person, because like I'm saying, the internet doesn't forget. Even if the image or video is pulled down, people will still have access to it. There's a way of retrieving it. Right. There's also the issue of flaming. So flaming is where you exchange words online. And this is very common if you're very active on Twitter and some of these other platforms. So you find exchanges between people, all sorts of abusive language being used online. It's also one of the issues. And the important thing for us to note here is that these things are real and they are actually happening in our schools. Go to the schools and you see the number of people who are victims to some of these things, you'll be alarmed. And sometimes it's not an adult doing it to the children. You also have the children doing these things to their mates, to their colleagues. So it's important that we talk to our children, we sensitize our children about these things. Now, like I was mentioning earlier on, these things are criminal. So in Ghana, in 2020, a law was passed in Ghana known as the Cybersecurity Act section from section 62 to 66. And it's actually looking at regulating our cyberspace. So there's a portion of this act that looks at child online protection. And it also states that some of these acts, these examples I've given are criminal. You can actually be jailed for putting somebody's naked video or picture online. So it's important to pay attention to some of these things. So if you look at the Cybersecurity Act, sorry, it's 2020, not 2020. Like I mentioned, section 6, child online protection. And saying that you can go to jail for a minimum of 5 years or a maximum of 10 years if you produce, publish, or possess an indecent photo of a child. So if you are somebody and then you have somebody, if somebody even should send you the picture, the thing, what you have to do is to delete it. You don't have to be sending it to other people because you can be charged for it. If you are somebody who likes taking pictures of naked children, and we find these things on social media, sometimes we laugh about them, but these are criminal things that can lead you to, that can actually send you to jail. If you also entice children, so like I was saying, you groom children, you entice them, and then you lure them into performing all sorts of sexual acts, you can also be charged for it. You can go to jail for a minimum of 5 years, a maximum of 15 years. And also the issue of aiding and abetting of child abuse. So this is actually looking at people who facilitate. So you might not be the one doing it. You might not be the one sending the pictures, or you might not be the one taking the videos or whatever. But that somebody is using your facility. So maybe you own a cafe or you have a device or something, and you allow people to come into your facility, send these pictures, or to even engage children. You can actually be charged That. And then the issue of sexual extortion, where you threaten people, you blackmail people for money or other forms of other favors, so that so they send you more naked pictures. These things are very criminal, and there are laws that protect children against these things. So we need to pay attention to some of these issues. Now, so like I mentioned, that most of our children are on social media, and these acts that I've mentioned actually have a negative impact on children. So there was an issue that came up online. It's not actually here in Ghana, but I read in one of the countries that it was a child actually. So she said she learned how to commit suicide. So she's been through different phases in her life, and she actually searched online on how to commit suicide, and she actually found a solution. So she was actually trying to commit suicide. So it's like I'm saying, it's very important that we watch what our children are doing online. Probably her parents were not paying attention to what this child was doing online. So it's important because it can lead children into committing suicide, especially where you have your naked picture online. Imagine how embarrassing it is, not only for the child, but even for you as a parent. So it's negative. Children can commit suicide. It can lead to low self-esteem. Imagine you are in a school where your naked picture or your naked video gets out there. I mean, how can you even sit in the same class? How are you going to look at your colleagues? And usually these things happen between children in relationships. So they'll tell you, oh, I have a boyfriend and I decided to send him a picture or a video or whatever, and then you break up. And by the time you realize the boy wants to put, or the girl wants to put your image out there, this is criminal and you need to stop, because it can lead to children having low self-esteem of themselves, or even trying to commit suicide, because it's very embarrassing, right? It can also lead to depression, and it can even affect your studies as a child, because imagine sitting in the same class or still being in the same school. I remember when I was on campus, there was an issue like that. The lady had to leave the campus because she couldn't continue with her schooling, because everybody had seen the video and she was shy to even go for lectures. So we are saying that there are laws protecting children in Ghana. And so if you know somebody, or if it's something that you are doing, please put a stop. And as parents and guardians, we need to pay attention to what our children are doing. Let's not just buy the devices for them, or let's not say that, oh, okay, it's distracting me, my children, so I'm able to do more things. So we just leave them to do whatever they have to do. These are other laws that also protect children, but the main one is the Cybersecurity Act. Now, what do we have to do? And like I mentioned earlier on, so the research that I did last year actually indicated that most parents and guardians in Ghana do not even know how to stay safe online. So if you yourself, you don't know how to stay safe online, how will you be able to protect your child? Sometimes our adults, or let's say our parents, feel, oh, these are modern things, I don't want to get involved because it's too complicated. But the reality is that if you don't learn how to do it and then protect your child is going to do it somewhere with a friend, or in school, or with a neighbor or something. And even sometimes we say, oh, meanwhile, I live in a rural community, so I don't have to be concerned about these things. I'm saying that research is saying that a lot more children have access to smart devices. And you don't really have to, it doesn't have to be yours. They can still go out there. Now you have a lot of cafes, even in rural communities, where children can go and spend time. So it's important that even for us as adults, we pay attention to this issue. So we would know how to teach our children or our nieces or our nephews how to stay safe. So like I mentioned earlier, you don't even have to post your personal information. Avoid posting personal information, because people can use it against you, and you can't even trust who you are sending the messages or the images to. And like I mentioned, the internet doesn't forget. So if you think that, oh, I'm sending it to this person, or it can be pulled down, somebody will download it. Yeah, actually ways of retrieving it. When it comes to the use of social media, we all know that Facebook and these other sites have privacy settings where you can set in such a way that the children are restricted in terms of their access to some of these sites. So it's important that as parents, we learn these things. Facebook has it, Twitter has it, these other sites have it. So let's learn how to set these privacy settings before we give the devices to our children. But you know, now children are smart. Most of the children even know how to use these devices more than their parents. So if you don't learn about it, I'm sorry, your child is going to learn all sorts of things, and then he or she might be in trouble. The other issue is you don't have to accept every friend request. I know the craze out there is, oh, the more numbers or the more following we have, that indicates that, oh, okay, you are popular or whatever. But like I'm saying, people are using fake identities out there. So they can take a picture of a child or somebody you know and then pose as somebody you know. And this might be a predator out there who is looking for somebody to harm. So it's important that we don't just accept any request, or especially people you don't know. Now, we should also be cautious of some of these dating apps. Now, these apps are all over, and you find a lot of children going onto these dating apps, finding partners and things like that. There are dangerous people, predators out there waiting to devour you. So please, let's be mindful when we go onto some of these sites. And then the issue of clicking on links. You know, sometimes when you're online, you just see something just pops up. And if you are somebody who is not sensitized about this, you can just click on it. And by the time you realize you're exposed to a porn site or something, and you know, children are curious. So if something like that should pop up on a device they're using, they'll definitely click on it. So we need to let our children know that if it's not verified, we don't have to click on it. Because if they are watching porn, they won't tell you they are watching porn. There was a case that was brought to our attention like that. It was a young man who was introduced to porn at a very early stage. So the issue was actually, so his parents didn't have the money to buy him a phone or whatever. But he had friends in school who had access to these devices. So when he goes to school and they are watching, he also goes, sometimes he takes the phone and he spends so much time on it. So he became addicted. And guess what? He had tried to practice this on his own relative. So he actually sexually abused his own relative. And this is something he learned from his friends in school. And he mentioned to us that he was actually exposed and he didn't know how to help himself because he became addicted. So that's why it's important we are saying that let's be cautious of what the children are doing. As parents, we need to be able to control the devices, to be able to restrict access, because some of these contents should be age appropriate. So if you are able to set the privacy setting that I mentioned, you'll be able to prevent your children accessing some of these sites. And then educating our children. Let's teach our children that yes, it's nice, it's very interesting to be online because there are so many things you can learn out there, but it is also very risky. There are people waiting out there to devour them. So we need to teach them to be responsible when they are online. They shouldn't share their personal information, especially to strangers, because sometimes it might even be somebody you know, but this person can still harm you. So if you are a young person and you are dating somebody, you don't have to send your naked pictures or your naked videos to that person, because guess what? If this thing should go out there, you don't know what will happen. And even if it's pulled down, there are even ways of retrieving it, or somebody can download and save it. So don't even get your information out there in the first place. So let's talk to our children. Let's teach our children. I've already mentioned the privacy settings. Now let's monitor what the children are doing online. Like I mentioned earlier on, a lot of parents or guardians feel, oh, this thing is a distraction. I have a lot of work to do. I have deadlines to meet. So let me just distract the child. So you just buy the devices for them. And now children are using all sorts of sophisticated phones and tablets. You find children even in primary school using very sophisticated phones. And we are not monitoring what they are doing. And so they are going to all sorts of sites. They are befriending friends. I mean, they are doing all sorts of things that we might not be aware of. And let's also be interested in what the children are doing. Let's also learn. Let's not leave it for the children. Let's not say that, oh, me, I'm BBC. I'm born before computer, so I don't need to know. I mean, it's too complicated for me. But like I'm saying, if you don't teach the child, somebody else will teach the child, or she might learn something negative online. Let's also raise awareness on the issue of cyberbullying. You know, bullying has actually been something that has been going on for a very long time in our schools. But now it's moved onto cyberspace. And so people are trolling and flaming people online, and it's very embarrassing. And like I'm saying, people can even attempt to commit suicide because it's embarrassing. And some people are not able to take some of these emotional turmoil. So it's very important that we sensitize our children not to harass people online. If you have a child who is doing it, tell them to stop. And you can only know this if you monitor and know what your children are doing online. Let's also secure the devices. Let's put passwords on our phones or our devices or on the software. Because sometimes, especially parents who would say they are BBC, we put very simple passwords for. And like I'm saying, children of these days are very smart. They can break your password. So we need to find ways of putting passwords that they cannot. So it doesn't have to be like your date of birth or your name or so. You can put something complicated together so that the child will not be able to break the device, because you may not always be around. So it's important to put in precautionary measures. Let's also encourage children to develop the habits of staying safe, looking at safe content. So you don't have to look at porn, you don't have to go to some of these negative sites. There are interesting things you can learn online. Now, I mean, there's a lot of information out there. So let's encourage them to concentrate on learning new things instead of putting their images and videos out there. Then we also need to sensitize them about making friends online. I mean, there are some children who don't even have physical friends. All their friends are online. Because now most children don't spend time outdoors, unlike our days where a lot of us were playing outside with our neighborhood friends. But now children are indoors. We live in neighborhoods where we don't even have compounds. So the children are spending a lot of time in their rooms. And so they are befriending all sorts of people online. And these are people we don't even know. And like we are saying, there are predators out there who are just waiting to chance upon our children. So let's talk to our children. Don't just befriend anybody. You don't need to have so many friends online to show that you are popular. And then it's also important that we are aware of reporting mechanism. If you find yourself in such a situation, your child is able to open up to you and tell you, oh, somebody has put my naked picture or my video online, or somebody is bullying me online, or somebody is trying to extort money from me. Where do you go to? Who do you report to? It's very important that we know some of these things. We know these things so that we will be able to help our friends. So like I mentioned earlier on, the Cybersecurity Authority, which is the main institution in Ghana that regulates issues of cyberspace in Ghana. And they actually have hotlines you can call, or you can SMS them, or you can even send an email. So if you know anybody going through some of these issues, you just have to quickly call them, and then they will assist you so that the content is pulled down. Or they can also sensitize you about some of these things. Don't wait till it's late. So let's even make the children aware of these things, because sometimes the children might not tell you, because it's embarrassing for you to tell your mom or your dad that, oh, mommy, my naked picture is out there, can you help me? So that's why it's important to let our children know that this is what is happening, so that even if they don't tell you, they'll know who to call. Because a lot of times, from the research that I did last year, that when children call some of these lines, they don't even want their parents to be aware of it. So it's important they even know where to go, so that at least even if the parents are not aware, the children know where to go when these things happen to them. You can also call us, the ACT Foundation. You can call the police, you can call the Orange Support Center, or you can call the helpline of Hope of the Gender and Ministry. And they will link you to the appropriate so that the content out there will be pulled down. So like I'm saying, need to show interest in what our children are doing online, because a lot more children have access to social media. A lot more children have access to smart devices. So we need to pay attention. We need to be interested in what they are doing. We need to be able to understand how these devices work. And we need to be able to put in measures so that even if they have access to these devices, they stay safe and they are not exposed to all sorts of negative content and predators out there. So like I'm saying, it is their space, it is their world, but let's ensure that they stay safe so that they'll be able to maximize the benefits that comes from being online. Thank you very much. If there are any clarifications or questions, you may quickly take them. Thank you so much.
Wow, thank you so much, Madam Annabelle. This has been very interesting. We have some interesting comments from our participants. So from Ishmael Jampamakuchi, he says that it's a very important topic and an interesting discussion. And then from Madam Florence Abina Topa, she says that thank you for sharing this example, very timely, and we totally agree with it. So one question I have on my table is, in terms of, you mentioned different demographics within the ages that we categorize as children in this context. So for instance, when we know that when children get to the point of puberty, they want to be more private. How do you make sure that you are able to protect them? How do you don't infringe on their own privacy? Like you mentioned in the case of the senior high school girl, how can a parent address this issue practically?
Right. So yeah, I agree with you. And I mean, we all went through that stage. Usually when you get to the adolescent age, you want to be more private. You don't want to discuss issues with your parents. But like we've been saying always, it's important that parents or guardians get close to their children so that they will be able to confide in them. So it is something you actually have to start, and your children should be able to open up to you so that if they find themselves in negative or dangerous situations, they can easily open up to you, even before they get to the puberty stage. So that if somebody puts their naked picture out there, because they know that, oh, mommy is somebody I can talk to, let me go to mommy and confide in her. They can easily do that. But if you don't start at an early stage and then you wait till the child gets to puberty, I'm sorry, the child will not open up to you. And you know the way our African parents are, hey, now we are bad, oh, yeah, and they start shouting and things like that. So it's important we start talking to our children at an early stage, and let's be very gentle with them, because I mean the children in this age are very different from the previous generation. So let's be gentle with them. Let's open up to them early. You don't wait till they get to puberty. And you give them the information even while before they get to the puberty stage. Let them understand that yes, you can go online, but you need to be safe, so that even when they get to that stage, they know that, okay, I can even call the cybersecurity, or I can call those, or they can even help their friends. So it's important to start early. We don't wait till they get to puberty before we start telling them this.
Yeah, so it's important we start early. So I think a follow-up question to what you just mentioned. So at what age, this is from Madam Florence, she's asking that what age should we get our children digital devices?
Right. So for me, I got a phone when I was going to the university. That was after I finished senior high school. But like I mentioned, now parents are buying these digital devices for their children at a very early stage. You can find children in class 2, primary 2, let's say 7-year-olds having these phones. So, and sometimes, like I'm saying, they'll tell you, oh, it's a way of distracting them because I need to meet deadlines. I want to be able to. So I will not be able to tell you at what age, but what I want parents to understand is that you need to know your child. I mean, 2 years old, why do you have to give her a phone? I understand sometimes you need to give them the phone so that if they are in danger or something, they can call you. So that's why it's important we are saying that you need to know how to set privacy settings. So that even if you give the device to the child cannot just go onto any site and then browse. So you need to be able to put passwords on your phone so that even if the child has a phone, she can only call you, or she can only access, and she would have limited access to these online platforms. So for me, I don't think it's important for you to give a child at a primary school child a phone. But now children are learning all sorts of things, coding and other things. And you also need to expose your child to some of these things. And it's important you start very early whilst they're in primary school. So that's why it's important the privacy settings. You set those things on the devices so that even if the children have it, they will not be open to these things. And also sensitize them early. Because now even children in class 1 know these things. I mean, you'll be surprised. Go out into the schools. They know that, oh, I can take a video this way. I can send. There are instances where you belong to a WhatsApp group. And then you notice, this person has put this picture there. And then you call the person and you realize, oh, it was my child. I gave the phone to my child and she mistakenly uploaded this video of this picture. So it's important we set these privacy things I'm talking about and also talk to them early. And if the child is young, you don't have to buy a phone for the child. I mean, they can have access after they use it, if it's for coding or programming or whatever, after that, you can take it from them. Or you can set a time. So you can set a time such that when you are home or when you have time to pay attention to them, you are able to monitor what they do. You don't give it to them when you are not around. Otherwise, you don't know what they might be watching or what they might be doing.
Wow. So delving deeper into what you just said, like for instance, I know of a particular game that kids play and they can actually interact with someone in China, someone in Russia. And you as a parent may be watching them and thinking that it's a virtual game, so they are having fun. And you mentioned that parents themselves have to be more educated or be more, abreast with these things. How can we address this particular aspect? Is there a way to, help parents and these children? I mean, in a case like that where the child is playing a game and you think it's very harmless, but in actual sense, they can have a chat box when they can chat with someone out there. You never know the information the person is passing on to your child. What would you advise parents to do in such cases?
Right. So, yeah, it's true. Now you have all sorts of games where you are sitting here in Ghana, but your child is playing with somebody in Japan or South Korea or whatever. And you might not be able to see the kind of conversations they are having. But that's what I'm saying. Sometimes we are able to set the devices in such a way that you are able to monitor their conversations. And so that's why I'm saying it's important we know how these devices work. So we are able to do put in place settings that will give you access to their conversations. And even if you sensitize a child early that, okay, you can play with this person in China or whatever, but if the person starts to discuss these things about maybe send me pictures or do this, do that, you quickly alert me. And if you start talking to the child and children, they will definitely tell you. And children can be very chatty. They can say, oh, I met this person in China. And oh, we've been talking, we've been playing, and he said I should. They can just mention it in passing. So it's important you start talking to them and also set the devices in such a way that you are able to monitor their activities. I mean, if you're able to talk to them early and you're able to conscientize them, they themselves will open up. So it's important they're interested in this. Let's not just give the devices to the children. Sometimes these games, you can even read about it. You read about it. So if you feel it's a game you don't want your child to, I mean, if you feel it's something you don't want your child to have access to, I mean, you can prevent them from playing those games. So let's start early and give them the information that children will be safe.
Okay. So diving into the place of current initiatives that are being done to combat this issue, what challenges or barriers do organizations or authorities face in addressing this online sexual exploitation?
Right. So like I mentioned, the cybersecurity law act was actually passed in 2020, and this was around the COVID, after the COVID period. So it's actually something that is new, but it's undergoing phases. So there's still challenges despite the law, and a lot of people don't even know about it. So I know the Cybersecurity Authority is doing a lot of awareness creation where they are trying to sensitize people on staying safe online, including children. So they are very present, they are very active on social media. So they post things on some of the negative, the risks that are associated, issues on sexual extortion, sex texting. So you can actually follow the Cybersecurity Authority and get to know about these things. I know they also go into the schools. So they are also going into the schools to sensitize them about these things. So it's quite a new area in Ghana. So a lot of work will still have to be done when it comes to this area. The Act is also doing that in our campaigns. We also mention the risks that are associated with being online. We give the helplines, the hotlines out there. So it's something that we are doing. But because it's quite new, I mean, we need to be able to do more. So we shouldn't focus on Accra or Shanti. We need to be able to go into the hinterland, the rural areas, because like I'm saying, a lot more people have access to these devices. So we shouldn't just limit ourselves to the urban areas. And then the schools, particularly the schools, we need to be able to engage the schools. And we shouldn't just concentrate on the senior high schools, because children in primary school, junior high school are also facing some of these things. I mean, now you find a child, I went to a primary school, a child in class 6, she told me she had a boyfriend. They've been calling, chatting over the phone and things like that. So it's important to go into the schools, and we need to engage the communities. So we shouldn't just concentrate on the schools or the institutions, but let's also engage the parents. So with the PTAs or the community associations, let's engage them, let's sensitize them so that they'll be able to help their children and when it comes to these issues. And then let's also give them this. So for the cybersecurity, the state institutions can also work with other NGOs, like for us, the Art Foundation, where we can also come and then raise awareness. So because it's a relatively new area, a lot more work needs to be done. So it's like a gradual process. But it's important we all get involved, especially as organizations, child protection organizations. It's important we all get interested so that we can reach a lot more people And let's also learn new ways of helping children to stay online. So yes, there are challenges because the sensitization hasn't gone down too well. So we need to be able to reach out more to people, especially in the rural areas. We need to engage parents more. We need to engage the schools, and we need to provide the right resources. Right. So that's what I'm saying. Even though the Cybersecurity Authority is there, other organizations, I know there are several NGOs that are doing this kind of work, but a lot more other organizations need to get interested in this so that our children can be sensitized. And then let's also provide the right resources for the institutions, let's say the police. So in Ghana, we have the cyber crime unit of the Ghana Police Service. So they actually handle all criminal issues in cyberspace. And so they work hand in hand with the cybersecurity authority, which is a main motherboard. So you can report to the police, but we need to train a lot more police officers on how to handle these things. Because like I'm saying, it's a relatively new area. So not every officer will know what to do. So we need to train, and we need to set up these cyber units in all across the country. You shouldn't just be centered in Ghana. So for now, you have to come all the way to Accra to report some of these incidents because we don't have stations across the regions. So it's important that gradually, as we learn more about these things, as we raise awareness, we are able to sensitize our police and give them the necessary tools, even in the other regions, so that you don't have to come all the way to Accra. So these are some of the challenges that we're facing, but like I'm saying, emphasizing, it's a relatively new area. So we all need to pay attention. We need to develop an interest in it and also help, because in the end, it's not only affecting parents, it's affecting all of us because the children are the future generation. So if we don't learn to protect them now, I don't know how the world is going to be the next 20 to 30 years. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Annabelle. So just another question. Are there any cultural or societal factors that are unique to Ghana that contribute to this issue, and how can they be addressed?
Right. So, so let me just concentrate on our Ghanaian context. When it comes to issues of sexual nature, it's usually very difficult for people to talk about. And so that's why some parents are not even able to talk to their children about sex education, because it's seen as it's an area that people don't really want to delve into. And so a lot of people feel shy or they are embarrassed to talk about these issues because you'll be branded as a Kolaboni, you'll be branded as, oh, you are high, you are a sports child or things like that. And this, it has got to do with our culture. It's a cultural thing. You can't talk about sexual things with a child. So a lot of people are not able to open up to talk to their children early enough. And so that's why it's important that we break these barriers. Yes, it's a private thing, but especially as a parent, you should be able to talk to your child, give your child sex education. Don't wait for them to go to school together. You give them that information now. And then the issue of stigma, is one issue that is very common here in Ghana. You'll be branded easy. You'll be branded if you get involved in some of these things. And like I was mentioning, in one of the schools, a lady had to drop out. She had to change her school because the stigma, she was being stigmatized. Her video went viral, so she couldn't stay in the school. So instead of us to rather protect her, because she could have committed suicide, she could have died. But she was stigmatized, she was branded as a bad girl and things like that. So she had to leave the school. So stigma is also one of the issues that is affecting this. And also this issue of religion. When it comes to religion, it's a very complicated area. And a lot of times, imagine you are a pastor's child and your child is involved in this. It's going to be, how can a pastor's child get involved in this? So it's also one of the things that is preventing people. Churches should even talk about these things. The churches shouldn't be shy. We should have sessions with children, with parents, talk to them, let them know that our children are putting naked videos of themselves out there. Because even adults are doing it. So let's also talk, we need to talk about these things so that our children will be cautious when they have.
Okay, so regarding this, you talked about stigmatization as you were, touching on that issue. Is there any, I mean, the hotlines that you've shared, are there any available for helping people, victims who have gone through this in terms of getting them through their mental health? Is there anything like that, out there for victims?
Yes, yes. So like I mentioned, the Cybersecurity Authority is the mother organization in Ghana that regulates these acts. And they actually have a child protection unit that focuses mainly on protecting children online. So yes, when you call, you'll be given counseling so that children are able to continue with their school and then other things. If you also call the Art Foundation, you can also get counseling. You can also call the Orange Support Center. They also have counseling services that can counsel our children. And even in the schools, there's a guidance and counseling units in the schools. It's important that these units in the schools are equipped with some of these skills, so they are able to counsel children who are going through some of these things. So yes, there's help out there. You can actually call and then get counseling. So children shouldn't lock themselves up thinking that, oh, I'm embarrassed. Who is going to talk to me? People will think I'm a bad girl. Just call and then people would help you get over this issue.
So I think to our participants, we can just take up the hotlines that are there, and we are sure that you find it so helpful one way or the other. And you can share it with your friends and the community at large as well. So in your experience, can you get us through any case studies of how perpetrators are found in terms of how you monitor them? If a child reports that, okay, somebody is actually attacking me online, are there any ways that are used to get these people and that are brought to book in that sense?
Yes. So like I mentioned, this is something the Cybersecurity Authority does in partnership with the Cybercrime Unit of the Ghana Police Service. So yes, if you report that somebody is trolling you or somebody has put your picture out there, they are able to reach out. And so there are ways of getting to these people. So they actually have a forensics unit where you take your device and then they are able to identify the person. So there's actually technology to do that. So we shouldn't be shy to report. You have to report because the perpetrator can be found. And like I mentioned in my earlier submission, you can actually be jailed for engaging in some of these things. Can be jailed between 5 to 10 years or even 15 years, depending on the act. So don't say that, oh, nobody can do anything to you. You can actually be identified. But now there are ways of retrieving these things. And I know that they also have a partnership with some of these social media sites, Facebook and other things. So they are able to link up with Facebook so that your information is pulled down. So yes, there are ways of getting the perpetrators. So that's why it's important to report. And then the other thing too is that sometimes the information I got was that a child can call and say, okay, this person has put my naked picture online. And then that's it. The person doesn't provide any information again because the child is probably shy that the Cybersecurity Authority or the police might contact their parents. But you need to let the children know that if you call and you don't provide enough information, you will not, there's no way they can help you. So if you are willing to report, you should be able to provide the needed evidence. So you advise the person's name and other things so that the perpetrator can be held accountable for what he or she is doing. And one other thing we need to note is that, now a lot of people are fond of sharing all sorts of videos and other things. If you should receive such a video or an image, yes, involving children in an explicit form on your phone, don't share it because you can also be charged for that. Just delete it from your phone unless you are sending it to an appropriate agency to help that child. So if you are sending it to the police or an agency can help the child, then you can forward it. If not, if you should receive such a thing on the phone, please just delete it. Don't send it to anybody because you can be charged for that.
Okay, so I think we have more interesting comments from our participants. So from Peter, he said this is very vital and informative. So just before we draw the curtains to this discussion. Can you highlight the trends on online platforms that show maybe the highest rate of, in terms of this sexual exploitation? Is it WhatsApp that we hear more of that, or is it Facebook, or like all these social platforms that we have?
Right. So for us here in Ghana, I mean the most common of these social media platforms is WhatsApp. WhatsApp is actually the most common. And you also have Facebook, you have Twitter, you have Instagram, and then you also have TikTok. So now there are, as for WhatsApp, I mean a lot of children are on WhatsApp, and then on Facebook. And so that's why we need to pay particular attention to these platforms. So there are other forms, but these are the most common ones. So the most common ones, like I mentioned, is WhatsApp, Facebook, X, which used to be Twitter, and then now you have TikTok. So these are the sites that find a lot of Ghanaian children accessing. So it's important we also go into these sites and find out how we can let our children stay safe.
Right. Thank you so much, Madam Annabelle, for sharing these insights with us. I mean, I think the participants can all agree that this information is very timely and very relevant in our time. And we want to thank you so much once again for sharing your invaluable insights and expertise with us today. And thank you, our lovely participants, for joining today's session. You made it very interesting with your thoughts as well. So let's remember that safeguarding our children in the digital world is a collective responsibility. We encourage everyone to take the lessons that we've learned today and translate them into actionable steps within our communities, our homes and workplaces. So before ending today's program, I want you to know about an amazing online resource that you may find helpful. It is the eLibrary USA. The eLibrary USA is the state-of-the-art digital library with 9 premium electronic databases that include digital newspapers, magazines, journals, videos, and dissertations. So usually this resource is only available to use at our American spaces, but with the global pandemic, we are opening up access to this amazing resource. If you are interested, sign up using the link that can be found in the comment section below. And so this program was proudly brought to you by the U.S. Embassy Ghana, American Corner Boba, in partnership with Mobile Web Ghana. And that concludes our program. Please do well to subscribe to this channel for more amazing virtual programs. Thank you for joining us today, and have